That was awesome.
And now I'm joined by Kim Burgess, the Drowning Prevention Coordinator for the Florida Department of Health and a longtime friend of the Children's Services Council of Broward County. Hey, Kim. So, Kim, we've been talking about these issues since I came to Broward 14 years ago. It's been your passion forever. But what are we doing in Broward County?
Well, we're actually doing a lot. It's one of the things that we're doing here in Broward that most other counties in the rest of the country are not doing is that our drownings are getting called into the abuse hotline. So not to place blame, but so that we can gather the data and offer services to the families that have lost children to drowning. And so we can't do that unless it's called in. And so we're doing a lot of training around the county on that, and we're getting that data. And so from that data, we see trends, right? And so back when we first started this, the trend was there were a lot of families of drownings who had prior allegations of abuse or neglect. Now, so we implemented programs based at that, that at-risk group. Mm-hmm. And so now we're seeing that the last 5 drownings that we've had just this year, there have not been priors. But now we're seeing apartment complexes, which we didn't see before, and we're seeing broken gates. And in every case, it's just that lapse of supervision. And I always say, not one child drowned that was being actively supervised. If you're not supervising them, then you need to have as many barriers in place as possible to stop the access to the pool. We have in Broward County over 130,000 backyard pools, apartment complex pools, hotel pools. So if you look at Broward County on a map, you'll see that we're like this big. Miami-Dade's like this, Palm Beach County's like this, and here's little Broward. But we have the same number of people, and we have way more pools and access. We have over 500 miles of canals and waterways. Wow. In Broward County. So the accessibility to the water is far greater than anywhere else in the state.
And some of those recent things, as you mentioned, were in apartment complexes.
Right.
And so for a parent who's living in an apartment complex, what are some of the things that they can do, or they can expect or ask or demand from the managers of the apartment complex?
In both of these cases, we lost 2 sets of twins, one in Sunrise and one in Deerfield. And so there's two. One of the sets of twins in Sunrise is still alive, but there's a little brain activity. But the 3 children have died. They all accessed the pool with a broken gate. Now, I don't know, because I didn't go and interview. That's what child protection investigators and police do. They go and investigate, but nobody complained, or everybody knew that the gate was broke, and yet nobody did anything about it. So my thing to general public out there, if you're in an apartment complex and your pool gate doesn't open out, it opens in, that's not code. It needs to be switched. If it's broken, you need to go and demand that the apartment complex fix it immediately.
And I think one of the things that I understand happens sometimes is the pools are green. They're not being used. So people sort of stop seeing them there.
Right.
But that's still a danger.
That is, and that was a big thing last year, and the year before that was almost every backyard pool drowning, the pool was green. And so the pool's not being accessed, so the parents aren't thinking about it. There are no fences up. And so there are no barriers. The kids didn't know how to swim. They didn't have pool fences. They didn't have door alarms. They didn't have door locks. The door wasn't even closed. It's almost always a sliding glass door. And so the parents, we always say this, that the kids were out of sight for less than 5 minutes, but because an investigator goes out and sees, we know that the children are being left unsupervised for 20, 30, 40 minutes, not less than 5 minutes. So there's that.
Although in some cases that lapse of time may be while they're looking.
That
as
could
we
be,
heard
right.
from Cassie
Right.
earlier.
That's exactly
right.
right.
She was looking around the house, wasn't really thinking that there was an issue, that the baby
but
could be outside.
She got there in less than 5 minutes. She got there quick. They found him, right, because Em lived for a week or so, so they were able to get to her quick.
That is one of the things that we don't talk that much about. You hear that it's the leading cause of accidental death for children 1 to 5, but there's also those near drownings or that they may be rescued but wind up brain dead, as may happen with this child in the apartment
That's
complex.
definitely what's going to happen with this child in the complex. And we know, and this is another learning, we know that every drowning was preventable. So by its very nature, it's not an accident, it's an incident, and it was preventable. And so we've got to stop thinking that it was just an accident. Now there had to be a lot of stuff that broke down for that child to die. They didn't scrape their knee, falling off a bicycle, that's an accident. A child dying, something led up to that. And there was a breakdown in a lot of barriers. If you have a pool in your backyard, you need to know that that is dangerous. We have a stat that we use that a child is 100 more times likely to drown than to be shot by a gun. But yet, we're very careful about leaving our guns out.
Well, we
we're
used
very
to be.
Yeah, right. We're very careful. We're vigilant about that. We got to put them away. We can't keep the bullets in it, and the parents get arrested immediately. But yet, the pool takes more of our kids than anything, and we're not addressing that. And and why? And we don't know. But it's just so accessible, and kids, especially children with autism. Drowning is the leading cause of death for children with autism. They go in, and they're because of the sensory issues with the skin, the pressure of the skin in the water is very comforting, and they love the water. And you'll see that you'll almost 2 or 3 a year we have children with autism who drown, and they just go underwater, and they just love the feeling of that underwater. So parents with children with autism, they have to have the door alarms, and they have to have the door locks, and they have to have barriers, and they have as a responsible parent, you're responsible for the safety of your child.
Now, these things like door alarms, door locks, gates, are they expensive?
No, you can get a 2-pack of door alarm from Radio Shack or Home Depot or Lowe's or one of those places for $10, and they're a pain. And let me tell you, they are a pain. But almost every child who drowned walked out of the house without the parents knowing about it. And until they get to a certain age, leave the alarms on. And then when they're 6, 7, 8 years old, out of that it's 0 to 5. So once they're out of that danger zone, of course they're never out of that danger zone.
Mine's 7. I still like to know when she's going to leave the house. I don't want to find her wandering.
And let me tell you something, when they get to be teenagers, you really want to know when they've come out the door.
So leave the alarms on.
I say leave the alarms.
It's a good investment.
Well, yeah, it really is. And I know we talk light about it, but it's so important that, especially at the young age, that you can't, these survival lessons that the parents give the kids, I am 100% opposed to that. That's not a good thing, because the kids get the lessons, and then 3 months later, at that 6, 7, 8, 9 months, they're not going to retain what they learned 3 months ago. That's not going to happen. You need a foundation of lessons, skill upon skill upon skill, just like riding a bike or playing tennis or anything else. You have to start with a foundation and work your way up.
Well, I'm going to talk to Jay Sanford of Swim Central in a little while about swim lessons and water safety lessons. You've taught me well.
Yes.
Water safety, different from swimming.
Yes, it is.
Building those skills.
Right.
But we really want to drive home barriers.
Right.
And they're available. Lowe's, Home Depot.
Right.
Change your locks. I know as soon as my daughter could turn that deadbolt,
that's right,
I changed to a key and I hung it out of her out of her reach.
And you have to do that.
Add those chains to the door if you have to. Alarms.
The alarms are the cheapest way. Fences are good, but if you have boys, they're going to climb over the fence. But the fences, what we've got to know is that those things that we're talking about, those barriers, people used to call them layers of protection, and they would think, like Cassie told me, that when they had a pool fence, they were protected. The pool fence does not protect you.
So we want to say, get those layers of protection,
because it just slows them down.
Don't let it lull you into a false sense of security.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no such thing as peace
eyes
of mind.
on the child.
You have children.
Is the best.
Right.
Is the best.
Yeah.
Preventive mechanism.
Yeah. Right. And when you're on or around body water, you need to be within touch supervision of your children. That's
a great way to leave it. Thank you so much, Kim. I know
welcome.
we could
Thanks,
talk about this for days.
Yes, for days.